Now, why are we this way? Why did it come to you all the way?
I mean, we talk about all these Shastras of ours, Ved, Upanishad, Itihas Puran, then we have this Manusmriti, then people talk of Yoga. What is all this? And if I want to formally understand it, where do I go? I just don't know. I'm so lost. Like, I know the Vedas, but I don't know anything. Usme kya hai?
Whom do you think we should go for authentic sources? How do you go?
What to study or what to look for will depend on what one person picks up.
Many of the people can't write their own mother tongue, which is so sad, but they can't. But does not mean they don't know, they can't speak.
All that a person has to do is try and find the core text, the Sanskrit one, with hopefully a good translation. Now, once you start your research, now one thing will lead you to another.
What is a Brahmana? What is an Aranyaka?
Broadly, there are two categories. One is Ved, which is called Shruti, and we have Smriti.
When we look at specific instance of a Upanishad, now how does it get attached to a particular way?
Now, see, that is the beauty of the way our ancestors understood knowledge, right?
Coming to one, might be a contradictory question. You told so many about Upanishads, Vedas, Aranyakas. Can you just give me an overall structure of what does it mean?
Who are these devtas? As a human being, what is my relation to the devtas? All those questions are something which the Upanishads, Aranyaks and Upanishads, they start talking about, discussing.
Shamata Amibandhu.
Shamata.
So nice to see you back in Mahagate Dharma Speaks.
Always happy to meet you and the entire team. Such dedicated and committed team.
God's grace and Gurudev's blessings. Thank you very much for joining us in Mahashivratri. It was a divine blessing.
Arey, I have to say this, your audience needs to know. Pavanji and the Mahagate team made something extremely divine and blissful happen for me. Yesterday was Mahashivratri, and he ensured that my new book gets its first launch on the Mahashivratri night in this sprawling campus of Malla Reddy institutions in front of like 10,000 plus students. So I will always remain grateful to you, and this Mahashivratri will always remain in my heart and my mind forever.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was our blessing to give this book, which the new book which you have given. And when I read it, I was like blown away by the table of contents first. The minute I saw the table of contents, I realized that this is the book which everybody has to read. And the minute I decided that let's do it on Shivratri in front of, you said 10,000, it was 50,000 plus.
Oh my God.
Students. So it is 50,000 plus students, and I'm sure if 5,000 people, students also read this book, it will be a divine blessing for them, because a lot of questions which I have been answered many times, which I also discuss with your bandhus. They ask these questions, and probably we'll keep on asking the questions in the podcast too. But yeah, really blessed to have you on Mahashivratri. First point, you are a great Dharma Bandhu to Mahagate. And Gurudev always really, really blesses you for the way you write, for what you talk, and all the podcast he sees of you. He's always says that she's the best. God's grace. So, coming to our favorite Itihasas, Mahabharata, Ramayana. God's grace, I have completed the 10 books of Mahabharata.
Excellent. Wow.
Now I know why you wrote that book. Because when I read it, it took me almost like three and a half years, so 1,000 days roughly.
Yes.
And 10 volumes and all the writing, noting, and all stuff. But I wanted to get that essence out, and that is what you did in Mahabharata. And you are a master of Mahabharata and Ramayana. Now, why are we this way? Why did it come to you all the way?
So I write about it in the introduction. it so happened that last year Kumbh Mela happened, right? And I was doing a session over there with certain Tirthayatris who had come, and they were from, some were from Singapore, from US, Indian origin people. And we were doing a session on Itihas, and something came up, difference between Itihas, Puran and stuff. And one of the lady was like, Ami, we talk about all these Shastras of ours, Ved, Upanishad, Itihas, Puran, then we have this Manusmriti, then people talk of Yoga. What is all this? And if I want to formally understand it, where do I go? I just don't know. I'm so lost. Like, I know the Vedas, but I don't know anything. Usme kya hai? So why don't you write about it? And that comment of hers actually took me back to 12 years ago, when I had just moved to Hong Kong and I had read Being Different of Rajiv Malhotra, always grateful to him for that fantastic book that he has written. And there was this thing about what does it mean to be a Hindu, and what is dharma and all that, which eventually led to the writing of Mahabharata Ramayana. But then it started with this. And I was as lost as Rituji and as many others.
Yeah.
So my first blog, I started blogging on Dharmo Rakshati Rakshitaha. And my first blog was on 101 on Hindu scriptures.
Wow.
Because again, I write to answer my questions, or rather I was studying to answer my questions, and that's how that 101 on Hindu scriptures happened. Because I'm like, okay, what's going on? Kaise samajh aaye? So I said, chalo, let's sit down, let's just research, let's talk, and I drew it out. That's my first blog.
Wow.
Okay. And then everything else started, where I realized, acha, nyay kya hai, ye kya hai, wo kya hai? Learn a little bit of Sanskrit, go deeper, stuff like that. And then that's how Mahabharata and Ramayana, the deep dive of those happened. So this was like taking one step back, going back to those days. The blog, however, was very simple and succinct about, okay, ye hai. I knew the structure and the objective of those texts, but not really what the texts had. Over time, I also studied Yoga Sutras in a lot of detail. So, thoda bahut malum tha, Sankhya vagere. But then I said, okay, this is an opportunity for me, what Rituji said, to again answer the questions which I have also had. Over time, because of the research and everything, and I knew, but not even to that level of detail. In fact, I have to say, even now, even after having written the book, I can't claim any expertise. Ved, Upanishad, kisi mein bhi nahi. My expertise, okay, I'll very happily say, ki, acha, I know Mahabharata Ramayana well, but beyond that, you can only touch the surface. The idea of this book is to say, acha baba, this is how the landscape looks, and this is the feel of it, with a little bit of depth, like pata to chale. Then people can choose once. I think all Hindus, we need to know at least this much, that this is a landscape. And then if somebody wants to get deeper, they know, okay, what they are going to, what is the expectation or what to look for as they choose whichever field they want to choose. So that's been the idea.
Wow. And जैसे आपने बोला कि you write because you wanted to know, that's the only reason why I do Yuva Chetana. Because if I have to teach the Gen Z people, I have to learn first. And it gave me a great experience to learn it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have learned.
Correct.
With these Yobandhus whom you saw on Mahashivratri, all the people who are doing the Dharma Seva, I have to teach them right. So the only thing which Gurudev gave me is you have to teach it right, and they need to be very interested to learn about it. So I have to make it interesting. I can't just keep on teaching the old methodology of that. So I have to teach in a Gen Z way. So I have to learn. I cannot be corporate.
Absolutely.
Because if I start doing corporate things, then they will not understand because they are not in that experience level. So I had to unlearn and learn, and that's exactly what you said to right. But I keep hearing this a lot, that we proudly say Sanatana Dharma is not a book based. We are a library. We proudly say it, but when I say that, the first question which the youngsters get is, I don't have time to read the whole library. Give me a 30-second reel, is what they say. And I'm not exaggerating, this is exactly that. What your book, Why Are We This Way, is exactly a ready reckoner, which you used to have in corporate world. When you used to go to meetings, you just pick up the ready reckoners and read it, because before you know, this is exactly like that. What you said is, it exactly gives you what you need to know if you're interested, and you can talk about it. Absolutely. You can claim. This is what claim. And I like what you said, that many of the other religions have people studying them very closely. Somehow our people, since we always proudly say we have library, people like, okay, it's okay, I can't read the whole library in my life, so let me not read it. Let me live. But I think it's a great way that we have got a ready reckoner now. And but what according to you, like, who should guide, like if you have to go to a library and pick out a book now whom do you think we should go for authentic sources? How do you go?
Um, I would suggest, again, I don't have an exact answer to this, but I think once we start delving deeper, once we know what we want to look for, right? Just go on the internet and you will have lots of sources. There are lots of people. So, for example, if somebody says, I want to get deeper into yoga, right? So, what to study or what to look for will depend on what one person picks up. If say they want to get deeper into yoga, so in the book I give the core texts of that book. All that a person has to do is try and find the core text, the Sanskrit one, with hopefully a good translation. Could be English, could be Hindi. Now there could also be commentaries. Now once you start your research, now one thing will lead you to another and you will get a sense of what it is. But it is more very important to at least know what the core text is.
Okay.
And if you can find an Indian translation of it, even better. I would also say some of the books have very good commentaries and translations, even by non-Indians.
Right.
And once you read a little bit, because I think that effort has to go when you go deeper, right? You will be able to even decide what is good and what is bad. But you have to keep an open mind.
But authenticity, like if you read 10, and right now with everybody is talking about, and God's grace, we have people like you who actually do a lot of research. I'm not saying others don't do research, but it is based on their life experiences or guidance which they have got. They might add the new narratives which is getting into
Yes.
that. So we need to be careful on reading that.
Absolutely. But see,
How
that's
do you
the difference.
validate?
I think Ved hai. So like Ved mein, you have the Veds which have been translated by a lot of English authors, and
Right.
not all of them are bad. Actually, some of them are very good. Then there is a commentary of Sayanacharya on it. Then there is Aurobindo on it. Okay. For anybody who wants to go deep into, so Ved, maybe there are two parts, right? One is Vedic chanting,
Correct.
which is the Karma Kanda part of it. For that, you must have a guru because it's very technical. Okay, just reading it doesn't help. Now, this book is just meant to tell you what it is, right? If somebody wants to do chanting, then they have to go deeper. If they just want to know what it has, what narratives it has, vagere, vagere, the wisdom it has, then you can refer to different translations. Okay. Don't just refer to one, is what I will say.
Okay. So do more work.
Exactly. Take one Indian, take one English, take one whichever local language, whichever your mother tongue is, take one that, and try to read both as you go. Now, especially for Ved, for even the Karma Kand, there is one, there's a literal understanding of it, and there is a metaphorical understanding of it. So if you read Aurobindo's work, Aurobindo has taken it completely in a metaphorical way. Whereas Sayanacharya and other rishis or other people, pandits, have also done a more literal translation and understanding of it. Upanishads, I think Upanishads are, there is a lot on the Upanishads and good material, because a lot of our own people have translated the Upanishads in every language. So, for a good starters, I tell people pick up any of R.K. Mission or Chinmay Mission books. Okay. For people like us especially, right, who don't have a traditional grounding, so to say, and are more interested in understanding the wisdom of it. Right. Similarly, if you want to understand yoga, one is the actual practice which you do. But for the theory, you must read the Yoga Sutras. You cannot not read the Yoga Sutras. Sankhya chahiye, so it's Sankhya Karika. So all of these core texts of us have core texts. वो तो पढ़िए ही, you should have that. Okay. And then any other commentary that you read alongside with it. Always helps to have somebody to guide you, especially for topics like Veds. Upanishad to chalo theek hai, but Ved or even Dharma Shastras, because Dharma Shastras were time contextual, right? And they were written, some things are valid today, some things are not. So it also, I think it requires a little bit of drishtikon as well. When you read ancient scriptures, right? Because there will be lots of things which probably we don't understand today as they had to say,
Mm-hmm.
or the context itself might have changed,
It might be
right?
relevant also now. Yeah.
Some might be relevant, some
Some
might
might be
not
relevant.
be relevant.
Yeah.
So, but understanding that this is still sacred and you don't need to dismiss, or rather, you don't need to accept everything or trash everything just because some things don't make sense to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take what makes sense, leave what does not resonate with you at this point in time. Don't be fanatic about this or that. These scriptures hold the wisdom of our rishis, of a civilization that has resisted. Well, I can't say decay because we went through a lot of ups and downs, but that which has sustained and remained resilient over so many centuries, right? Eons, if I may, 5,000, 7,000 years at least. When others like Mesopotamia, Greece, Rome, Egypt, they came, they went, they are in museums today. We still exist. We are a
Right.
living civilization, right? And this wisdom has helped us. And as you read these different texts, it's also very interesting that you see that evolution of faith. We are not, set in stone, ki bhai aisa hi hai aur kuch nahi. Things have changed. And that's why if you see in the book, it didn't start off with the title of Why Are We This Way. It was only supposed to be a guide to Hindu Shastras.
Right.
But as I myself studied, it was just so beautiful to see how the evolution of thought itself has happened, how evolution of stories have happened, how evolution of worship has happened. For example, if you go to the Vedic times, the mode of worship is essentially the yagna,
Yagna.
right? That yagna was physical yagna which was happening. By the time of Mahabharata itself, the yagna itself has taken over more metaphorical meaning, where tapasya, everything was a part of yagna, right? Co-dependence, or as they say, symbiotic dependence in the nature, that was also a type of yagna, maintaining that. More metaphorical, more personal, all that yagna had become along with the practice. But you also had Murti Puja, you also had deities who had become prominent, who we call Bhagwan. By the over time, yagna thoda kam ho gaya, and you had mainly the deity worship as we have now, right? We have Ishta Devtas and everything. But despite this evolution of faith, the core values have remained the same, very similar to what it was. Even today, a lot of prarthanas we do come from the Vedas. They were meant for a different purpose probably at that time. But today, they have been repurposed into prarthana for some other deities.
Yeah.
This is the beauty, right? This is how Sanatan happens. As they say, Sanatan Nitya Nutan. So you have to keep evolving. And that is what our ancestors, forefathers and the Sant Mahatmas have done over time, without completely rejecting the past, but ensuring it remains relevant, updating it, adapting it to times. So,
when you are speaking about it, I think two major things came to my mind. Our mission of Mahagata is to create a caring and compassionate environment. If you would have stopped there, we would have become just a charitable trust. But we are a Rudra Sampradaya, been continuing, and 70th Mahadibhu is Gurudev. The vision is accepting the continuity of existence.
Fantastic.
So you don't reject the past, you don't reject the existence, you don't say this is bad. So you continue and keep on doing the essence. Essence is very important. And when I read your book, very beautiful thing came in. Same thing told in Vedas turned into a story into Puranas. When latest is Puranas, right, about probably 5,000 years old, when Sri Vedavyasa actually have written it or compiled it, I should say. He wrote Puranas in a way that if you read it, you'll love the story like a movie, but you have to understand the essence only. If you take that on the literal way, then you are like little ignorant, I would say, because slowly you have to engage and understand the essence which is coming from Vedas. It was Vamana which you wrote. Oh, I think I was shocked, and many shocks were there. when I read Mahabharata fully, then I thought I'll claim that I know everything, and that's a brief second I get it. But when I saw the amount of scriptures we do have, I think this was like one more eye opener for me. That Vamana, for example, the story which
Yeah.
was told in Vedic way was converted into a story so that we understand.
Correct.
Isn't it about Trivikrama, right? Is that?
Yeah, so Trivikrama, the first time the mention of Trivikrama comes in the Rigveda, Samhita, where Vishnu is taking 3 strides. In the Taittiriya Samhita, that Trivikrama, the 3 steps story, the 3 strides, are now associated with a dwarf Vaman. Okay. Rigveda doesn't speak about it, the dwarf form. It just takes 3 steps to defeat the Asuras. Okay, in the Samhita, where Vishnu becomes a Trivikrama to support Indra in his war against the Asuras. Now, Aurobindo takes a very metaphorical understanding of it. It's like the Asuras are inside you, are the Ripus that we talk about. And Indra and Vishnu and all of that are powers which control them. So the Devatas are meant to be that, like what Gita talks about. Devi Sampat, Asuri Sampat. He takes that view of it. But the story is this. Taittiriya Samhita is talking about the same 3 strides where Vishnu again has become a Vamana, but the story is taken in, it's a Yajurved basically. I think it comes in the Brahman part as well, where now it is to explain the formation of a Vedi, like space for a Vedi, where he's now Vamana taking 3 strides, but it's related to the ritual per se.
Right.
Coming to the Purana, now it has become a full-fledged story of Bali and the 3 strides of Vishnu as a dwarf, right? Now, one could say, oh, so this means nothing, this is all false. What is it? That's not how our rishis see it. Also, this is not as if I found it, right? People have known it. There have been people who have written commentaries on that and stuff. So it's like the rupa of the devata also evolves as you need them, right? So one explanation usually given is that even the devata manifest themselves in your thought according to your needs of the time. So it's not as if this is false and that is true. Okay.
Both of them exist.
That's a very that's a traditional view of it. A non-traditional view would be like, it's okay. We call certain deity or that Vishnu Shakti Tattva, we call it. The Tattva, the Vishnu Tattva has been now given metaphorical, liturgical stories around it. And that's perfectly okay because things evolve. The way Vishnu Puja was happening at the time of Vedas is very different. It was a yagna. Versus in Puranas, where Vishnu is now a full-fledged Bhagwan as we see him today, as per our need, right? Hence, the story also evolves. Now, for a Vaishnava, it is 100% true. For a non-Vaishnava, it may not be. And we are very comfortable with that idea as well.
Both exist.
Because, again, going back to the Vedas, we have the Saguna and Nirguna. And in the Mahabharata, in the Bhagavad Gita itself, Krishna says, there's one question which Arjuna asks, right? Arjuna
Who
says,
is better? Which is better?
Should I do Sagun or should I do Nirgun? Some people say Sagun is better. Some people say Nirgun is better. Krishna says, both are fine. Just that Nirgun is very difficult.
Very difficult.
Nirgun is very difficult, so you don't worry about it. Think about Sagun. But the idea, what the Upanishad says, don't stop there. Don't become fanatic over there. The idea is to transcend it, right? To that Nirgun Nirakar, that Brahma Tattva, that is where the Upanishads take you. Now, so you come from the Karma Kand to the Puranas, but the idea of the Upanishadic Brahma, the Tattva, the Nirgun Nirakar, the origin of it all stays the same.
Right.
Right? And every Puran will also agree. They'll say, Vishnu, it's Vishnu. They'll say Vishnu is that Brahma Tattva. Shiva, they'll say Shiva is that Brahma Tattva eventually. They will also say, while there is Shaivite, while there is Vaishnavite and all that, they will also say Shivaya Vishnu Rupaya. Shiva Rupaya Vishnave. The Shiva and Vishnu are one and the same. Now, where is this going back to? Again, the Vedic Vakya. Ekam Sat Bahuda Vipravadanti. Right? Now that Ekam Sat Bahuda Vipravadanti has also, it's been said in one of the Rigvedic Suktas, where because in Rigveda also there are lots of deities. Rather the Devatas, not deities, I should say Devatas. Indra, Varun, Agni, Surya, Prajapati, vagara, all of this. So that Ekam Sat Bahuda Vipravadanti is actually talking about all these Devatas. That some call it Indra, some call it Varun, some call it Agni, but at the end of the day, Ekam Sat Bahuda Vipravadanti. They all are manifestations of the same Bhagavad Tattva, the same Brahma Tattva, people talk about it in different forms. There are different paths to it. So see how the essence remains the same,
but
the stories
forms,
evolve.
stories, and like what we also do, right? When we typically do consultings, depending on the client requirement,
Correct.
you change that, but your basic still will remain
Absolutely.
profit, managing sustainability, and clear. So I think it's the same thing which is given in the Rig Veda, right? So I think we jumped into beautiful answers, but when you talked about all these things, you told so many about Upanishads, Vedas, Aranyakas. Can you just give me an overall structure of what does it mean? Because we all know, many of us know, it's 4 Vedas and probably 1 or 8 Upanishads. That's what high level.
Yes.
But when I read your book, I got the table. And that was like,
I'll just
wow.
show it.
And this is something which I'm going to, make it as a session for my student, this book, that you need to know the structure. If somebody asks, why do you have a library of books?
Correct.
Okay, we do have library of books, but we do have a catalog. It's not like we are randomly keeping all books.
No, our rishis were very clear about all these things.
So we have a catalog, and people need to know that catalog. What is a Brahmana? What is an Aranyaka? I think it's in the 2nd chapter.
So there is this table on page 8, 9. This is what you're talking about, right? This one.
Yeah.
So broadly, there are 2 categories of the scriptures, the library of scriptures that we have. 2 categories. One is Ved, which is called Shruti, and we have Smriti. So Shruti is that which is heard. Now heard matlab kya? Now see, that is the beauty of the way our ancestors understood knowledge, right? They are saying we don't have any IP, no patent on the knowledge, because this knowledge is for everybody. This knowledge is for the good of the humanity. So we haven't created this knowledge. The knowledge was there. That knowledge has just come to us. We became a medium for that knowledge. That's why the rishis are called Drishta. Drishta means the ones who saw. Not the ones who made it. Not the ones who created it.
Right.
Okay. So the Drishta saw this wisdom, and through their state of meditation, they manifested it as the suktas, as the verses of the Vedas. That is what we believe. So this knowledge is what was heard or what was seen is called Shruti. Now what is in Shruti? The Vedas, the 4 Vedas that we have. Rig, Yajur, Sam and Atharva. Now Rig, Yajur, Sam, what are these? These are the different types of mantras that are used in the yajna. Okay. Now every Ved has about roughly 4 parts to it. One is a Samhita. Okay. Now it is not as if this Rigved, Samhita, Aranyaka, Brahman. It's not that way. There are different books because the purposes are also different. So you have what is Samhita, which is the mantra section. These are the suktas which are to be chanted in the yagna, when the yagna ritual happens.
Right.
Then you have what is called Brahman. Again, it is in all 4. Brahman will tell you, or it will expand on the ritual itself. Like why should you do certain ritual? Okay, now let me take an example so that one understands better. The Rigveda especially, the Rigved, okay, so even before that, I think it's important to understand why the 4 Vedas, okay. So as we were talking, the way worship happened was through a yagna, or yajna as people say, which comes from yaja, which is to offer or to pray, to worship. The idea of the yagna is that human beings are not born independently. We are born with a certain rin or a certain debt on us, because we don't decide where we are born, right? We don't decide what our identity is going to be. We don't decide if we are born in a family which will take care of us or not take care of us, right? Even after we grow, even today, who is making our clothes? Who's making the cotton? Who's making the food and everything? We depend on everybody else. So we have a rin of the devatas, rishis, pitrus, the society at large on us, and we have to play our role to pay back to all of them. Now, this is also what this phenomenon of balance, you also find in the Prakriti in general, right? The tree takes nutrients from the soil and gives fruits, which we all eat. So the tree has a role to play. Similarly, a bakri has a role to play, which eats the grass and gives us milk. So every phenomenon in nature is playing the role in the ecology cycle, as we say. As human beings also we play that role, unlike the Abrahamic religions where we say that everything is meant for enjoyment of Purush or man. We say no, we are one of the constituents of the nature, of this natural cycle. So now, how do we pay our gratitude back to them? What is our role in this natural cycle? That is where the yagna comes into play, where we appease the devatas. Who are these devatas? These are the devatas who are energies of Prakriti, right? Rain, Surya, Vayu, everything. If they don't function the way they do, we will not survive. Hence, we have to pay our gratitude to them, appease them, pray to them, so that they function the way they do and they bless us.
Right.
That ritualization was the yagna. Okay. Now, a yagna mein kya? You call the devatas, feed them, offer them something, ask for what you want, they bless you and they go back. It's like having atithis at home, having guests at home. So first of all, you have to call them, no? Yes. You invite them. Pavan Garu, please come to my home. Right. But how will I say? If I just say, Pavan Garu, come home, you won't come. Pavan Garu, you are such a great man. You are running this Mahagathe foundation, that you just think so much work. I would be blessed if you come to my home. Right. That is calling you. Right. Invoking. That is what the Suktas of Rigved do. Okay. That you please come, you bless my home, you please take care of me, please also teach me whatever, ensure my family is fine and all that. Now when they come home, you have to feed them something. Yes. आप उनका वो पाद पूजा करते हैं, कुछ अर्घ्य देते हैं वगैरह, how it used to be, right? That you have to do for the devta. So there is a certain way you have to ensure they come, you make a certain offering, you give dhanya, whatever. It has to be done in a certain way. How to do that, how to make the Vedi itself, all that comes in Yajurved. Okay. Okay. That Yajurved will explain कि ऐसे ऐसे करना है. So this is the procedure. Offer food, offer ye, offer ghee, falana dhikana, all of that. Broadly, मैं broadly बोल रही हूँ. There's a lot more to this. I know, yeah. Now when somebody is home, you also want to entertain them. Right. Right. You'd be like, हम बोलेंगे अरे मेरा बेटा बहुत अच्छा गाना गाता है, आप गाना गा के सुनाओ, है ना? कुछ अच्छी अच्छी बात करेंगे, स्तुति करेंगे उनकी. That is what Samaved does. So Sama are the type of verses which are set to tune, music, from where our classical music itself comes. That is in Samaveda. Maximum of the verses in Samaveda are Rigved Suktas only. But set to tune. Set to tune. Okay. So they sing it, right? And to take care of all this, we have a Purohit who knows all 4 Vedas, including the Atharva Veda, to take care of all this. Now, Atharva Veda is not necessarily a part of this ritual. There could be specific rituals related to Atharva Veda, but Atharva Veda has more mundane tasks. About बीमार हो गए तो क्या कर सकते हैं, क्या यज्ञ में करना है. You love some lady, how do you get her? So there are charms of love, the charms of healing, and many other things. So that is what Atharva Veda आपका daily routine में. So this is how the 4 Vedas are. Rigved, inside, call them, do the stuti, do the ritual, actual ritual, then sing for them, entertain them, and then go. So these are the 4 Ved that way. जिसमें पहला, as I said, Samhita will take care of the mantras which you have to chant. The Brahman will say, why do you have to chant that? What will happen if you chant that? So the reasoning is given in. Why is a certain name this way? Agni को Agni क्यों बोला है? ये इसका ऐसा ही pronunciation क्यों होना चाहिए? ये जो verse है, ये जिसने बोला था उससे क्या फायदा हुआ? So that is called Arthavad. What do you get? Vidhi, how to do and why to do. Right. Then people will get, अच्छा ये ऐसे करेंगे तो मुझको ये benefit मिलेगा. That is what the Brahman Granth है. Then going into Aranyak and Upanishad, the concern is not so much the ritual per se. It is about what does it represents in the larger scheme of things. So you start turning inside. This is an external ritual. Then you start turning inside and start asking the existential questions. What is the point of this life? What is the real truth? How does this creation happen? Who are these devatas? As a human being, what is my relation to the devatas? All those questions are something which the Upanishads, the Aranyaks and Upanishads, they start talking about, discussing. So it's literally a movement going from the external to the internal. So it takes care of all your dharma, artha, kama, eventually going to moksha. So this is how it is all laid out. This is, sorry, I'm giving a huge long answer.
No. I think
Sorry,
I think it
I just
is.
completed the Shruti part.
No, but I think Shruti actually is the most important thing for us, and probably not in Kali Yuga, because Kali Yuga we start asking for, and I loved the logic which you wrote, and I told to my bandhus and they all loved it. Is many of the people can't write their own mother tongue, which is so sad, but they can't. But does not mean they don't know, they can't speak. You can't say, oh, you can't write, so you are not valid, what you're saying. We agree people for
Correct.
what they say. That's how Shruti is. You can't say there is no Smriti for it, so I don't agree what you are, it doesn't exist. That the toddler you
Yeah.
said that first you'll learn to speak, then
Huh.
you start writing. I love that example. But when you hear those Vedas, Samhitas, Aranyakas, and Upanishads, okay, let me ask at that point and then go to my next question. Upanishads are part of Vedas, like literally, it's
Part of
component of Vedas,
component of Vedas.
or
Yeah.
somebody's commentary
No, it's not a
on
commentary.
Vedas.
No, it's a part of the Vedas.
Part
So
of
in
Vedas.
a lot of like Isha Upanishad is a part of that Ved itself. Like
Okay.
Samhita आपका आरण्यक
Aranyak,
शतपथ
Upanishad,
ब्राह्मण वगैरह आता है
Shatpat,
और उसमें फिर you have the Upanishad itself
Upanishads, so
as one of the chapters.
chapters.
Like now what is written
Right,
manuscript
right.
में, उस तरीके से. So it's very much
So
a
it's
part
part of
of the whole. Yeah,
Shruti. It's
it's a
part of
part of the
Shruti.
Shruti.
Upanishad is part of Shruti. Okay.
All these four are part of the Shruti, and every Ved has these four, and every Ved has the Upanishads as well. So within that Ved parampara, there were rishis who asked these questions, and these questions have been answered in different ways. So
So
that's how it is.
Upanishad generally they say Upanishad. आपने
Sit
explain
close,
किया, sitting near to
sit
the
with the
Guru.
Guru and learning.
And we are really blessed to have a living Guru who we can
Yeah.
sit and ask him.
Yes.
And when we are talking about authenticity, what we do is we take all the sources to him, and with his divine blessing, he will say, this is not valid, this is valid. Now, that is something which is an authority, like Shabda. You go by Pramana. I'm jumping into
Testimony,
the
which they
Pramana.
say, yes.
Because he himself is a personification of the Rudra Sampradaya, we believe it. Now, when we look at specific instance of a Upanishad, now, how does it get attached to a particular Ved? Or is it like in a composition itself?
No, that's how we know.
That's how we
As
know.
we know now.
As you know, it's part of those
हाँ.
things.
So जैसे Aitreya Upanishad
Correct.
is a part of Aitreya Brahman,
Aitreya
which is a
Brahman.
part of Rigved.
Okay. So we.
So Chandogya, it's a part of
Correct.
Samaved.
Right.
We just know that. That's how it is.
That's how it is. Beautiful.
So you just accept
And we
it.
have the clear classification
Yes,
I
yes.
saw in your book.
Yes.
So
Yes,
18 Upanishads have, or 108 Upanishads also have been classified, or only 18?
Yeah, yeah. So every Upanishad is a part of some Ved.
So
It
108
is
are
not
classified
standalone.
with that.
हाँ,
Okay.
So every Upanishad is a part of some Ved somewhere.
Some Ved. And will that be related to specific Brahmana, or it's like a one-to-one mapping? No.
As in?
Like there is a one Brahmana where one Upanishad is available?
हाँ, it could be. It's like Katha Upanishad is a part of, so it's not one Brahman, it's basically Shakha.
Shaka.
Okay. So Shakha, so what happens is, say Rigved. Rigved was there. Then at different points in time, different Rishi families would have preserved it. Right?
Okay.
Now, there might be little differences in the suktas they have, the little differences in pronunciation, little differences in the rituals. So what happens is that Shakha, and because previously in the olden days, ancient times, there were lots of rishis, so there were many shakhas as well.
Okay.
And in different some lineages of Rigved, you will have specific shakhas. So even today, if you ask a Ved Pathi Brahmin about what is your, like what, so they'll say
Apastambha Shaka.
Exactly. So it will come with the Shakha.
With the Shaka.
They'll say, oh, this Jaiminium,
Jaiminium.
this Atre, or whatever, right? Shakal, sorry,
Shakal.
Shakal or Bashkal or whatever. For
Right.
Rigved, it is these. In Yajurveda, actually there are two more divisions: the Shukla Yajurveda and the Krishna Yajurveda. Now, Shukla Yajurveda has Vajasneyi, which we still have. The Krishna Yajurveda has Taittiriya as well as one of the others, right? So Shakha. So the Upanishads will be related to the Shakhas as well. So that's how it is. So it's a little complicated. And there's a table for that as well.
Yeah, I saw those.
A lot of Shakhas are lost to us, but some are still going on.
So, I know we have gone deep into the Vedic things, and I had questions of what each Veda says, and you actually given that my answer as if you have read my questions. I never shared with you.
But I should say what I'm saying is very uparchala, very superficial. Okay. There will be a lot of details around it. somebody wants to go deep, right? This is just a very starting point of it. As somebody peels the layers, there'll be a lot more to it. As I said, I cannot claim to be an expert on Vedas. I also have a very superficial understanding. वो बोलते हैं ना एक अंधों में काना राजा. It's mainly that. But there are lots of Vedic scholars around. So if somebody is interested, this book can be a starting point and then get deeper.
I think what I felt when I read this, because I've been reading a lot of things, and thanks to Gurudev, we have been guided by him on many, specifically on Upanishads and all. So when I read your book, what I felt was it is a lot of things which I cannot get in ChatGPT. First point. Because I actually am a Gen AI certified person, so I know how to extract the things from the humongous texts we have and huge texts we do have. Wisdom.lib, you will get many of the books. Now, what I got from your book is the pointers.
That's the idea. Yes.
Your book actually is a table of content. Each of the chapter, when you told Rigveda, this particular, I can go that and go deeper and go research.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, what happens is I don't know where I am. Like,
where to start?
Where
That's
to start.
Yes.
I can randomly ask a question and I get 4 Vedic scriptures into that, and we are lost. So I think this whole book is a table of content for our scriptures.
Yes.
I think that's exactly what you said, a guide. We in our Telugu, education world, we come from very, in my generation, I don't know about the current generation, we are totally told about get marks, okay, because you have to go to US. I'm probably generalizing it, but that's what we were told always, to get 100% out of that. So we used to get guides. So this guide is a textbook, used to have all the sums, and used to get a Vikram guide, we used to very famously call. It will tell you how to solve this basic things, ताकि exam में pass करो और 100 marks आ जाए. तो guide ज़्यादा पढ़ते थे, book कम पढ़ते थे. बट अभी एटलीस्ट गाइड की वजह से बुक में ये है बोल के पता चलता है. तो आपका एग्जैक्टली व्हाट यू रोट, it is a guide to Hindu Shastras, and thank you for writing that. Coming to one, might be a contradictory question, but